Righto, fellas. Yep. Well, thanks for watching, guys. This is a delivery of my client's Nordhavn 68, and we're towing the Boston Whaler 285 Conquest. So we were going from Brisbane, where the boat lives, up to Townsville on this leg. The owner likes to do a couple of big trips every year, really. The trip this year was to go all the way through to Port Douglas, where he'd take the boat with his family without me and do a couple of trips on the reef. So my job was to get the boat to Townsville, where I'd meet the owner and his son and friends, and we'd go out and spend about 10 days going through to Cairns and then Port Douglas. That's in a separate video which will come out soon. I put together a great crew of 4. I think 4 is the minimum for something like this. We certainly need a couple of guys managing the whaler when we're anchoring or berthing, and also for our watches. We tend to do 2 people on watch, and we do 4 hours on and 4 hours off. That's for the overnighters. Seems to work well. The crew was made up of Stu, who's a very competent skipper in his own right, so he was a great hand to have on board. I was lucky to get him. And then there's my old mate Greg. He's played on boats most of his life, so he was very good at his roles. And then I've got Ben, and Ben has worked on white boats in Europe, in the Mediterranean, I think the Caribbean, and he's back here working for Nordhavn. Senjero. So it was a great experience for him to get to know these boats. As you can see, the weather was just incredibly good. We were so lucky because we were kind of going on this date anyway, given the time restraints. So we went straight up the outside of Fraser Island, and I think we were up around Breaksea Spit by dawn. Yeah. And there's Greg doing his thing. Can't stop him, he loves cleaning. Great hand on a boat. Thought I'd give you a quick look in the engine room. It's one of the features of these Nordhavns. That's the fuel management system there. So you can move fuel around from tank to tank to balance the boat or to polish it. This is looking aft. Over there's the wing engine. That's the shaft. I just do a check around. That's one of the things about this fuel system. We use the day tank, which requires you to go down about every 3 or 4 hours and top it up. So it gives you a reason to look around the engine room, make sure everything's in order. So after 30 odd hours, we approached Lady Musgrave. It's got a great lagoon, for those of you who don't know, a very narrow entrance there, but it's literally a surrounded lagoon. Right, I'll take the heat off, eh? So we thought we'd come in here and spend the afternoon relaxing after our all-nighter. So we put the little tender in so we could go ashore, and we also took the Boston Whaler for a blast. Good to give her a run after those sort of long tows, charges all the batteries up and keeps it all going. And as it turned out, we know these people, and even more of a coincidence, Stu, my crewman, was starting a job skippering that boat after this trip. Bit of wide open, 44 knots. And while we're going over to talk to the guys on Adagio, we came across this whale mother and its calf.
The colour of it. Little cutie.
Ben, how are you? Good, mate. Have you ever seen?
Okay. Okay. So arrangements were made to meet it on the beach for sunset drinks with the crew on the Dagio.
Yeah. Friday Arvo drinks.
It's Friday, Arvo drinks.
Is it Friday? So I got to walk across this stuff, do I?
We might anchor this out here, eh?
We're all going back together in the one boat. Stay there, Harrow, because Kevin Bradley wanted to stay there. Fergal, take a shot of him with these two.
So it was a very early start, prepping the boat. We had a big leg ahead of us today, all the way through to Keppel, which I think is about 100 miles. So I'd laid a track coming into the lagoon. There's a couple of bommies there. I know the area very well, but still you want to be careful when there's low light. I waited for a bit more sun, and then we very gently just followed our track out around the few bommies you got to watch, and then out the channel. Just can't believe these conditions, I've got to say. Especially when you watch the videos that are going to come out soon, you'll see that the weather we got after this was pretty ordinary. I almost feel guilty. So a very uneventful passage really, which is a good thing, through to Keppel Island. That's great Keppel there. We were trying to get there before the sun went down. There's a bar on shore that boys were keen to go in and have a beer at. It's important to keep your crew happy. And to be honest, it's great to use all the equipment, you know, just make sure it's all working, make sure there's no problems, give it a bit of a shakedown before the owner and his guests come on board. Any excuse will do. How deep?
Oh, no, you're all good. 600 mil. No nuts.
Righto. Well, good morning. We left Keppel's about an hour ago and we're on our way to the Percy Islands, Middle Percy. Show the guys the A-frame with all the boat memorabilia. Weather's been unbelievably good since we left Brisbane. Sort of 5 to 10 knots is about it, out of the east, southeast. So yeah, the forecast isn't so good. It's still good for now, but we've got 20 to 25 coming on Tuesday afternoon, which is when we'll be up north of the Whitsunday. So we're going to make a run for it, do an all-nighter tomorrow night. Try and get into Townsville before we get that blow. So Keppel through to Percy Islands is about 100 miles as well. We run it about, with the whaler on the back, we're doing about 8.5 knots. We lose about half a knot with her. So that's Cape Manifold. And as we pan around here, that boat there is called Can Do, another boat in my professional boat care fleet. And I was going to help him drive it up too, but as you can see, the timing clashed, so I had one of my skippers help out there. Very pretty part of the coastline here, running past Port Clinton and all the islands there. I spotted this a way off, ran up on the bow to have a look.
Tiger. You there?
Tiger. Yeah. So a very, very pretty day today, going past all the islands as we approach Middle Percy in time to get ashore. Having a set of controls on the transom there is fantastic for this towing setup. I can actually back the Senjero up to the whaler. So the anchorage was pretty busy, as most anchorages are, I've got to say, along the coast during these COVID times. Everyone's out boating. Anyway, we threw the little boat in and went ashore to explore the A-frame.
Captain Ron, that's Dad.
Yes, so that's one of my dad's plaques. You know, I mean, Dad went to the reef 43 consecutive years for the marlin fishing season. So, you know, my grandfather's got plaques back in here dating back to the early 70s. That was the original little shed, the one we're looking at right now. But it became so popular they built the A-frame, and as you can see, it's just bulging with people's plaques. You can lose hours looking at all that stuff. And then we had lovely drinks on the beach with some of the other boats. Can Do. And this couple here, they have a YouTube channel called Make It Happen, so we're sharing tales. So another pre-dawn start. This was where we were going to do the overnighter, 250 nautical miles from Percy Islands right through to Townsville, and we were trying to beat this 25 to 30 knot blow that was forecast. It was going to get us. We weren't going to outrun it entirely, but we were going to be most of the way through to Townsville. It's just wouldn't be a problem if you weren't towing the whaler, but towing a boat like that in a following sea isn't great. So we could see the weather was starting to deteriorate as forecast. So we pulled up in the lee of an island, and the idea was to set the drogue. I've got this old tyre that I hang off the back of the Boston whaler. It's very rudimentary, but it's indestructible. That's it there. And basically, it's designed to slow the whaler down. So if she tries to surf in a following sea, that tyre will pull her up a bit. Well done, mate. Yeah. The bridle off the stern of the whaler that tows the tyre, it's set at 4 metres, so you know, if you've got plenty of water there, it's no problem with it hanging low. Anyway, here comes the weather. Torrential rain, pretty well all evening as we went through the Whitsundays. Righto, now what's on the menu tonight?
Spaghetti bolognese.
Very
Famous pantry. Eat and serve.
perfect. But as you can see, life's pretty tough on a Nordhavn with the air conditioning and beautiful meals being prepared by your crew. Anyway, it was time to do a bit of a check in the engine room again, top up the day tank, and settle in for a long evening in some pretty ordinary conditions, I've got to say. The spotlight on this boat's amazing. I fired it up, swung it around on the whaler, thought it'd be handy to be able to look back there at a glance. And then this is what we woke up to. At this stage we only had about 20 knots, probably 25. But with the tyre drogue off the back of the whaler, she was doing very well back there, not wanting to surf at all. And I do have a second tyre hidden away on board if conditions got even worse. You can see it's doing its job there, but sort of just. It's a balance between putting too much drogue weight out there and slowing us down too much. So you just got to adjust it accordingly, really.
Is this a monumental marker? Flag bowling green?
You know, I often have people say, you guys are crazy trying to tow a whaler around like that. But look, it gets used every day, all day, when the owner and his guests are on board. It's a very important part of the setup. I've done a lot of towing in my life. We towed our family's game boat behind our mothership to Cairns every year. She was a 32-footer, so I'm well aware of the pitfalls and risks involved in towing a boat, particularly in a following sea. So something I didn't plan on was the Townsville Marina where we were going to go. Couldn't fit us a day earlier. So we had to go out to Horseshoe Bay behind Magnetic Island and sit it out for a couple of days until our berth became available. That boat out there was dragging. By now we had about 35 knots. It was a bit wild. And there go the crew in for their mandatory beer on shore, while I stayed on board and kept an eye on things. This boat in the centre of the screen is another YouTube guy. His name's Norm Walker, and his channel's called Cruising for Old Dudes. It's a great watch, actually.
You go.
So because we arrived a day or two early, we changed the flights for two of the crew to get home, and because we weren't in the marina, we had to run them ashore in the whaler. So then it was just Greggy and I thinking about how we're going to run the two boats into the marina. So I sent Greggy in the whaler so he could tie up and come and grab some lines for me when I brought her in solo. It goes to show, you know, these boats are amazing that you can run this on your own, really. It's got such powerful hydraulic thrusters that run off the wing engine and stuff, so, you know, even berthing it in this 25 knots that I was going to have, you know, wasn't really an issue. What was more of an issue probably was how shallow the entrance to the harbour was, so I had delayed my arrival by a few hours. So we'd have a bit more water there with the incoming tide. That's the entrance there into the marina. That's under the bottom. It got down to 1.7 or something, so it wasn't too bad. I could have gone in a bit earlier in the end. And here's my 25 knots of crosswind, but you know, with these powerful thrusters fore and aft, it wasn't really an issue. So both boats delivered to Townsville on time, in fact a day earlier, and no damage or issues. So thanks for watching, subscribe, hit the notification bell and keep a lookout for the next lot of videos. Cheers.